think recording has started. Yes. So, good afternoon to one and all. Today we move on to our next module, that is module 3, where we are going to deal about symmetric key cryptographic techniques, shortly called as symmetric ciphers. Okay, in this module we will be discussing the following topics, like I will be giving a brief introduction about block ciphers and stream ciphers. Then we move on to the famous encryption standards called Data Encryption Standard DES and Advanced Encryption Standard AES. Okay. Then we move on with the PN sequence generation with respect to symmetric key ciphers. Last module we just had an idea about what even the PN sequence, that's all. Here with respect to symmetric key ciphers, how the PN sequence generation can be done. Then stream ciphers, actually we'll be discussing the stream cipher and block cipher in the beginning itself. Okay. So with this, okay, up to this stream ciphers, everything comes under symmetric key cryptography. Whereas if we go for RSA crypto system, it comes under asymmetric key cryptography, also called as public key cryptography. I don't know on what basis they kept it in the syllabus in this module. Actually speaking, it should not be present in this module. From syllabus point of view, we will be discussing this RSA also with this module 3. Okay. So to start off with, we'll go with the stream ciphers. We already had a brief introduction about stream ciphers and block ciphers in module 1 itself. So here if you see the stream ciphers, we can able to, sorry guys. So here we'll be having a stream of plain text which will be having a n number of characters. Similarly, we'll be producing n number of ciphertext with respect to the key stream. That is each and every character. For example, if P1 is the first character in our plain text 1, we'll be generating the ciphertext C1 with respect to the key called K1. Whereas for the second character P2, I'll be using the second key stream value, that is K2, to generate this C2. Right. So each and every plain text is mapped to ciphertext with the individual key values which is present in the key stream. This is a stream cipher. Whereas if we go for a block cipher, we'll be grouping the plain text symbols into different groups sizes, and the group size will be user friendly, and generally it should be always greater than 1. Right. So you can able to group the ciphertext in the form of groups. Okay, and we'll be using only single key to encrypt the entire block. Block in the sense, for example, if I take this PLA, this is block 1, this is block 2. So the block 1 will be encrypted using the key called K to get this first block of ciphertext. Then second block will be taken again encrypted with the same key called K to get the second block of ciphertext. Okay. This is the major difference between a block cipher and a stream cipher. So generally speaking, if you take modern day block ciphers, sorry, modern day encryption techniques or cryptographic techniques, most of the techniques, that is 90% of the techniques, they go for block cipher. And the minimal block size will be in terms of bits is 64 bits or more. It will be the size of the blocks used by the modern day cryptographic techniques. Whereas if you go for a stream cipher, okay, the messages will be processed in terms of bits and bytes. That is only one bit or one byte will be processed at a time. Okay. So you can able to see with the time efficiency wise or computational wise, block cipher will be having an edge compared to a stream cipher. Okay, and also it is very easy for analysis purpose as well as for it has many applications under its hood. Okay, so block ciphers are preferred more compared to stream ciphers in present day encryption techniques. It doesn't mean that I mean they are not using stream ciphers. Stream ciphers are also play a major role, but most of the modern day block ciphers they go for, sorry, modern day cryptographic techniques, they go for block ciphers. So if you see, this is a pictorial representation of a stream cipher with respect to block cipher. So here I'll be generating a stream of plain text, okay, which will be encrypted with a bit stream generation algorithm, which is going to produce me the key stream, right? And the same algorithm will be used at the receiver end to generate the same key stream to decrypt the message. Since we are discussing it in a symmetric key encryption technique point of view, the same key will be used for both encryption as well as in the decryption part. Whereas if we go for a block cipher, I'll be using the same key called K for n number of blocks. The block size may vary, but whatever the size of block may be, I'll be using the same key called K for each and every block to get the ciphertext. So this is a brief introduction, or just I'm brushing up what we just discussed in our module 1. Now we move on to the modern day block ciphers with respect to symmetric key. Here we'll be having a block made up of n bit. Okay, so this n bit plain text will be converted into n bit ciphertext using encryption algorithm, which will be using a key with the k bit as size. Okay, and this value of k has some relationship with the n, which we'll be discussing in the upcoming slides. Okay, that is the size of the key will be decided based upon the value of n, and the same key will be used for both encryption and decryption. That's why it's called a symmetric key cryptographic technique, also called as what can I say, it's a private key encryption technique also. There's two names, but conventionally they use for symmetric key and encryption technique. Okay, so here the same n bit ciphertext will be again decrypted to n bit plaintext using the same key. So here is a trivial example how a modern day block ciphers work. Okay, sorry, yes. So here they are asking how many number of padding bits are to be added to a message which has 100 characters. Okay, if 8-bit ASCII value is used for encoding. That is, they are going to use 8-bit ASCII value for each and every character in the entire message, and they are using a block cipher, and they say that the block cipher is going to accept blocks of size 64-bit. So start off with, I have 100 characters, and each character is made up of 8-bit ASCII. So totally how many bits? Can anyone tell? Is the size of the message? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
What is the size of the message then? I have 100 characters, and each character is made up of 8-bit ASCII value. Totally how many bits will be there for the entire message?
800, sir.
We are having 800 bits, right? And they say that the plain text should be segregated into number of blocks to be 64 blocks. Can anyone tell how many blocks you can able to make from this 800 bits, whereas each block size is of 64 bit? How many block size can you able to get?
So we'll have to add 32 bits and then it will be 13 blocks.
Yes, perfect. So you directly jump into answer, but generally you will be having 12 blocks, each of 64 bit, and the 13th block will be left with only 32 bit here. So I have to add another 32 bit to make it as a 64 bit block. So the condition is nothing but the size of the message plus padding should be congruent to 0 mod 64, right? So the padding is nothing but minus 800 mod 64, which will give me 32 as my answer. So this is how modern day block ciphers will be working on. Now we move on to, now you have an idea why people prefer block ciphers compared to stream ciphers. Okay. Now there's a debate whether you have to go with a substitution or a transposition type of encryption technique in modern day scenarios. We already came across what do you mean by substitution cipher and transposition cipher. Can anyone tell very shortly or very briefly what do you mean by a substitution cipher and what do you mean by transposition cipher in a layman's language? I hope you get my question. Can anyone tell what do you mean by a transposition cipher and what do you mean by a substitution cipher?
So substitution cipher means like just shifting the
plain text into ciphertext with help of one standard key, whereas transformation matrix is writing the plain text in one order and giving it as in one particular order, which act as a key. There's no key required in transformation cipher.
Not exactly. There are also key transformation ciphers are also there. Okay, to be in layman's language, simply speaking, substitution cipher, I'm going to replace each and every character with another character. Whereas in transposition cipher, I'm going to simply change the position of character 1. That's a major difference between substitution and transposition. Kunal, but what you just said is closer. But to be in layman's language, this is an easy way to remember. Substitution, I'm going to substitute the existing character with other character. While in transposition, I'm going to simply change the position of the characters. That's all. Right? Fine. So if you take modern day block ciphers, okay, they can be designed either based on a substitution cipher or based on transposition cipher. Okay, and if you take all the modern day cryptographic techniques, the messages or everything will be dealt in the form of zeros and ones alone. But in order to make it more resistive towards any trial and error method of attack or just research attack, modern block ciphers prefer substitution cipher over transposition cipher. We'll see an example why they prefer substitution cipher when compared to a transposition cipher. Assume that you have a block cipher and the value of n is 64, that is the size of your message is 64, and there are 10 numbers of ones present in the particular ciphertext. Okay, so how many trial and error tests does the attacker Eve need to do to recover the plain text from the intercepted ciphertext? There are two cases. One is the ciphertext is produced with respect to substitution cipher, and the second, the ciphertext is produced with transposition cipher. Right. If you take the first case, the Eve will not have any idea about how many number of ones are present in the plain text if the substitution cipher is used, because they said that the ciphertext will have 10 number of ones, but if you use substitution cipher, some ones may be replaced with zeros also, and some zeros will be replaced with ones also. So Eve has to make 2 power 64 number of trials, that is, now to find the original message. Whereas if you go for a second case where you are using a transposition cipher, he knows that the 10 sorry 10 number of ones are going to be present in the plain text. So simply he has to try only 64 number of different combinations of the positions of ones in the entire message. Right. So in the entire 64-bit block, what are the various positions of 10 ones can be done? So you can able to make only less number of trials compared to substitution cipher to find the answer. Right. 1 second, please. Fine. So in this case, you can able to see substitution cipher is more robust to such kind of attacks when compared to transposition cipher, right? So that's why if you take modern day block ciphers, they prefer substitution cipher over transposition cipher. That is, they don't simply rely on transposition alone. Some existing modern day cryptography techniques, they have a combination of both transposition as well as substitution cipher. Okay. So if anyone have any doubts in the topics we discussed so far, you can ask. If it is fine, just raise your hand so that I'll move on to the next topic. Fine. Next is called permutation group. So just a name is new to you people, but the concept is same. So here the permutation and combination. So permutation is nothing but other name of a transposition cipher. So here you can able to combine multiple transposition ciphers into a single transposition cipher, also called as multiple permutation into a single permutation. How we are going to combine or group them? Okay, that particular operation is called composition. It's called as composition of permutation. We'll see an example here. Okay, once again. So in this case, if we take the input value 1, okay, 1 is moved to the position number 2. That is here you can able to see. So here, as I hope you remember, 1 denotes the input, the value, and the positional value, that is the face value, denotes the output. So for the positional value is 2 here, right? So 1 will be coming to 2, right? And the 2 will be going to third position, you can able to see here, and 3 is coming for the first position. Again, I'm using another permutation here. So this 1, 2, 3, whichever came here, because now this 1 has, if this is the value of 1, 1 has come here, and the same 1 is present here, and you can able to see here they're using 1, 3 and 2. The value of 2 is pushed to the third pin here. So this 1 traveled from here, 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 and the value of 1 came out here. Okay, so I can able to directly write this 1 can be directly mapped to 3 here. You can see the another example in case of 2 or 3. You just take 3. 3, the value of 3 is now pushed to 1 here, the value of 3 is present here, again is pushed here, and based on this is directly pushed to this position. So this 3 is now present here at the first position. So instead of using this two different permutation, I can able to combine these two, and I can use this is one of the combinations of a 3 input and 3 output permutation box, right? So I can simply write 3, 2, 1. That is, you can able to see the position of 3 is coming out at 1, 1 is coming at 3, and 2 is coming at 2. You can able to see this 2 is moved to position 3, and 3 came here, and here again come back to 2. So what they say, they mean here in the sense, even if you make a multiple repetition of a permutation, or you can go for n number of repetition, I can able to replace all the n number of permutation using a single permutation box itself, or single permutation key itself, right? This is a sample of if you have 3 inputs and 3 outputs, these are various combinations you can able to get. Okay, for example, if you use this as a first one and this one as a second one, simply I can able to go with this one directly. Or if you go for 2, 3, 1 versus 2, 1, 3, if I replace it to 1, 3, 2, it performs both the operations of this one and this one. So here they want to conclude that even if you go for 2 permutations or one after another, not to strengthen the security, it's not going to strengthen the security, because we can always replace the n number of permutations with a single permutation value itself. Okay, because the permutation boxes are going to satisfy the closure property. Fine. So anyone have any doubt in this permutation group, you can ask me. If it is clear, raise your hands. Okay, thank you. Fine. Now we move into next one. Now we had a brief idea, that is how the modern day cryptographic techniques rely on. They rely on block ciphers and they rely on substitution techniques. Now we move into the combination of transposition with the block ciphers. Which one is better, transposition block ciphers or substitution block cipher? And to be technically speaking, we used to call them as a full size key transposition block ciphers. Which group is the best one? So if you take a transposition block cipher, okay, we need to have n factorial possible number of keys, and the key size should be log to the base 2 n factorial. For example, let's consider we have a 3-bit block transposition cipher. So I'm going to have a 3-bit as an input, okay, which will be given to a permutation something or a transposition cipher technique, which give me 3-bit output. Okay, so here the total number of combinations of these 3 bits will be 3 factorial, which is 6, and the size of the key is nothing but log to the 2 to n factorial. So in this case, the log to the base 2 of 6 gives me the value of 3. So the size of the key will be 3 bits. You can able to see here I'm having 3 bit as an input, and the key size will be also 3 bit. This is nothing but the key. That totally we have 6 different combinations of key. That is because we are having 3 factorial combinations. This is how a full size key transposition block cipher works. Whereas if we go for a full key size substitution cipher, so substitution cipher, what they are going to do in sense, they are going to decode the given input and they are going to expand it not to increase the key size. Okay, so if I have n bit, okay, generally there we have n factorial difference of combinations, whereas we go for substitution cipher, they go for 2 power n factorial. So if you take the same example where you have a 3-bit block substitution cipher, these 3 bits are going to be converted into 8-bit input. Okay, this is because 2 power n, in this case n is 3, so 2 power 3, I am going to get 8, right? So now we can able to see the different combinations of keys. There will be 8 factorial different types of keys. So 8 factorial gives me 40,320 different types of keys are existing. I can use any one from this one. So what will be the size of the key? Again here it is log to the base 2 power n factorial. So log to the base 2 40,320 gives me 16 bits. So the key size will be 16-bit key. Fine. So this you can able to see, if you want to put everything in a nutshell, a full size key n-bit transposition cipher, or if you go for substitution type of cipher, okay, the only difference is the thing with the key size. I mean the major thing is going to distinguish them is nothing with the key size. In transposition cipher, I'll be having only log to the base 2 of n factorial of key, and the substitution I'm going to have 2 power n factorial key size. So 16-bit in this example and 3-bit for transposition cipher. So from this you can able to see how the modern day block ciphers, they rely on substitution techniques compared to transposition. Okay, and you can able to have a partial key cipher also, like instead of full size key, suppose the partial key is a subgroup. I hope you remember what you mean a cyclic subgroup. It's a cyclic subgroup type means then you can able to easily generate the full size of key from the subgroup elements itself, right? So this is a basic introduction about some of the technical terms or the reasons why they prefer one particular type of cipher techniques in modern day cryptographic technique. So anyone have any doubts in this one, you can ask me. If it is clear, just raise your hands. Okay. Now we move on to another important topic in this module, that is components of modern block ciphers. So I want everyone to listen to this very carefully. So if you understand these components all, then you can able to follow up with the algorithms of AES and DS algorithms. Okay. So if you take a modern day block ciphers, they go for keyed substitution cipher. We just saw the justification now why they're going for keyed substitution ciphers. Okay, and this key will only help you for a partial mapping alone. It's not going to help you direct mapping from the input to output. Only a partial mapping will be done with respect to the input to output. So the rest of the mapping is taken care of some of the components of the modern block ciphers. The components will have transposition units, it will have substitution units, also we have some other units also. So this transposition unit is called as a P-bots or a D-bots, and the substitution unit will be called as S-bots. So the P-bots, the word P stands for permutation, whereas the letter D stands for diffusion. We'll see why that name diffusion comes in the upcoming classes. So as of now, if I say a P-bots means it is going to perform transposition cipher. If I say S-bots, then it's going to perform a substitution cipher. Because the modern day cryptographic techniques, they have combinations of both P-bots, S-bots and other units also. Right. So a P-bots is nothing but a permutation bots which is going to perform a traditional transposition ciphers of character. That simply is going to change the positions alone. Okay. And these P-bots are generally keyless transposition ciphers. Fine. There are three different types of p-bots called straight p-bots, okay, compression p-bots, and expansion p-bots. So we'll start off with the straight p-bots. A straight p-bots, as name denotes, will be having n number of inputs and n number of outputs. So here the number of inputs will be same as the number of output, and here the possible number of mappings will be n factorial. So in the algorithm, I'll be choosing any one of the bots among this different combinations. So if you have a 3x3 input output p bots, I'll be having 3 factorial possible mappings. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and different 6 different variants types of mapping. So when your n is 64, I'll be having 64 factorial combinations. This is one of the 64 combinations, one of the p bots. That is, the input pin of 58 will be taken as output in pin number 1, and the input pin of 50 will be taken as output in pin number 2, and the input from 42 will be taken as output in the pin number 3, and it goes on. This is one of the combinations of this straight p bots. Sometimes we used to ask like this, that is, they ask you to design an 8x8 permutation table for straight p bots that moves two middle bits 4 and 5 in input to the two ends 1 and 8, and the positions of other bits should not be changed. So your straight bots will look like 4, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8 and 5, because they said that the two middle bits, that is 4 and 5, should be moved to the ends of bit 1 and 8. So they have moved the fourth bit to first bit position and fifth one to the 8th bit position, as well as they place the rest of the thing in the same thing. Nothing changed, right? So this is how permutation bots can be designed also with basic rules, right? Next we move on to compression p bots. So as the name denotes, we will be having two different sizes of inputs and outputs, like n number of input and m number of output, whereas here the output will be always smaller than the number of inputs. So how they are going to reduce it? For example, in this case, you have 32 cross 24. That is, you will be having a 32 number of inputs and 24 number of outputs. So here in compression p bots, they will be dropping certain input values. For example, in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is dropped here. 7 is not present here. 8 is not present here. I think so. 8 is not there, right? 8, 9, 10 is there, 11 is there, 12 is there. So like this, they will be dropping certain input values. That is a compression p bots. Expansion p bots is like a opposite of compression p bots. Here also the number of input is different with compared to the number of outputs, but here the only condition is nothing but the outputs will be always greater than the number of input. So here, now to expand this one, they are going to repeat the sum of the input values. For example, this is a 12 cross 12, so 12 cross 16 p bots, that is the expansion p bots. You can able to see number 1 is repeated here, right? 9 is repeated here, 10 and 12 is repeated here, like this. So they have repeated certain input values to get the expanded p bots, right? Sir, suppose we are using these types of p bots in the encryption end. So what we will be doing in the decryption end to retrieve the data back. So for that, in every p bots which you are going to choose should obey the property called invertibility. So whatever the p bots which you are going to use, if it satisfies invertibility, then you can able to perform the decryption part. So you can able to see in an affine cipher, if we can't able to find a multiplicative inverse of any particular number, we can't able to decrypt. The same concept here. The inverse should exist for each and every p bots you're going to choose. So from this you can able to see only the straight p bots are alone invertible, whereas your compression p bots and expansion p bots are not invertible. I hope you remember how in transposition cipher we created a decryption key from the encryption key, if you remember properly. We discussed this in the previous Cat 1 syllabus itself. This is, for example, this is the encryption key which are going to use the encryption n can able to generate by adding the indices. Then you can swap them, and again if you sort them, I can able to get the decryption key, and I can able to say that this encryption and decryption key are invertible to each other. That is, you can able to generate this one, I mean this encryption key from the decryption key also. Whereas if we go for the other types of pbots like compression pbots and expansion pbots, I can't able to find the invertible property, because if you go for compression pbots, you will have dropped this input 2. So you'll be having the output as 1 and 2. From this 1 and 2, it is not even possible to get the value of 2 here. Whereas if we go for expansion pivots, from 1 I got the values of 1 and 2 here. So with the help of 1 and 2, you can't able to map it to the same value which was generated here. So the compression pivots and expansion pivots does not obey the invertible property, and they are non-invertible. Right. Anyone have any doubts in this permutation boxes? You can ask me. If it is clear, you can raise a hand. Okay. Now we move on to our next one called SBOTs. So SBOTs is a substitution cipher based bots. We can also call it as a miniature substitution cipher. So if you take SBOTs, it will be having m cross n substitution unit, that is m number of inputs and n number of outputs, and it is not mandatory that m and n should be same. Sometimes m will be equal to n, and there are situations where m and n are different sizes also. But here the relationship between this input and output will be based on certain mathematical expression. It can be a linear equation, it can be a non-linear equation, any mathematical expression. That is, if you have a n number of inputs and you are going to produce m number of outputs, you can able to see the output y1 is based upon some function which is related to the n number of inputs. Similarly, y2 is produced with respect to function f2 with respect to the rest of inputs. Similarly, you can go for ym number of outputs. So how this relationship is going to be mapped? If it is mapped with respect to a linear expression, okay, that is y1 is nothing but a11, that is a coefficient of x1 input, and some operation here a1 to x2 and goes on like this. It can be a linear expression also. So you can able to see an example here. Here they said that it is a different type of input and output. You can able to see here I have 3 inputs called x1, x2, x3, whereas only 2 outputs y1 and y2. And they say that the coefficients a11 up to a21 is 1 and a22 and a23 are 0. So this matrix shows the relationship between the output values and the input values. Right, you can able to see that if 3 number of inputs is going to produce me 2 number of outputs here. Okay, this is only for your understanding, people. We don't have any math involved here or any numericals from examination point of view. But if people have to understand how SBOTs is going to be built, then only you can able to picturize how AES and DES algorithm is going to perform. Right. So there are also other ways we can able to create a relationship between the input and output with respect to higher order expressions also. Right. We'll see an example here. Here they are creating SBOTs which has sizes 3 cross 2. Okay, that is, I'm going to give input of bits of size 3 and I'm going to get a output size of bit 2. And this is the SBOTs which you're going to use. This is one of the SBOTs combination. Right. So here they say that the leftmost bit of the input defines a row and the 2 rightmost bit defines the column. So for example, if I take a value as 0, 1, 0 as the input, the leftmost bit defines the row. So 0, and the rightmost bit 1 and 2. Okay, rightmost bit 2 and 3 called 1, 0 defines the column. So this is the column 1, 0. So this is the output. So when I get the 0 1 0, I'll be getting output as 0 1. So next example again we'll see 1 0 1. This is 1 0 1. Output is 0 0. So the same thing, the SPOTs which you are going to use at the encryption end cannot be used directly at the decryption end unless or until the particular SBOTs is going to satisfy the invertibility property. So in SBOTs, the relationship between the inputs and outputs are defined directly by a table or any mathematical expression. So all SBOTs cannot be called as an invertible SBOTs. Only certain substitution boxes will be having the invertible table or invertible expression present to them. So if you see an example here, here it is a 3 cross 3 SBOTs. I'm having a 3-bit input, which is going to give me 3-bit output. So in this case, this is the left hand side is nothing but encryption end, and this is the decryption end, and this is the SBOTs used in the encryption part. And the invertible or the inverted version of this SBOTs is this one. This is going to be used in the decryption end. So for example, now I am giving input as 0 0 1. As a rule denoted, leftmost bit go for the row. So 0 0 0 1 gave me 1 0 1. Right. So now I am going to give this 1 0 1 as input to the decryption end. So 1 0 1 gives me 0 0 1. So here 0 0 1 gave me 1 0 1. The decryption and 1 0 1 gave me back the plain text here. So this is how an SBOT is going to work in the decryption end unless or until it has an inverted version of its own SBOTs at the decryption end. Clear guys regarding this SBOTs? If you have any doubts, you can ask me now. If it is clear, you can raise your hand.